The British royal family has always captivated the world, but rarely has the spotlight been as revealing or as uncomfortable as it is today. Behind the ceremonial pomp and carefully orchestrated public appearances lies a deeply personal family drama that speaks to universal themes of love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the price of duty. At the centre of this drama is a quote that has sent shockwaves through royal circles. "It sickens William that Harry has wormed his way back to his father's affections," a source recently told Examiner. "To him it's just wrong on every level and utterly ridiculous." That single statement encapsulates everything we need to know about the fractured state of the relationship between Prince William and Prince Harry. While reports suggest that King Charles is slowly opening his heart to his younger son, William apparently can't stomach the idea. The heir to the throne reportedly feels not just betrayed, but genuinely disgusted that Harry could simply reconnect with their father after years of what William perceives as public humiliation and family betrayal. But this reaction raises profound questions about the nature of family, forgiveness, and the unique pressures that come with being born into the world's most scrutinized monarchy. Is William's anger justified, or is it rooted in something deeper, perhaps envy, pride, or the suffocating weight of his predetermined future? To understand this complex dynamic, we need to step back and examine King Charles's position with fresh eyes. Here is a man who, at 75 years old and after battling cancer, has been forced to confront his own mortality in ways that most parents never have to face so publicly. The question isn't why Charles might want to reconcile with Harry, it's how any father, regardless of his station, could turn his back on his child indefinitely. Charles's reported openness to rebuilding his relationship with Harry speaks to a fundamental truth about parenthood that transcends royal protocol. The love between a parent and child doesn't simply evaporate, no matter how painful the circumstances. Harry is still Charles's son. He's still the little boy who walked behind his mother's coffin at age 12, still the young man who served his country in Afghanistan, still the father of Charles's grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, who live thousands of miles away, and whom the king barely knows. From Charles's perspective, reconciliation isn't about weakness or capitulation. It's about recognizing that life is finite, and that some things matter more than institutional pride. The king has witnessed firsthand how quickly everything can change. His own health scare has likely reinforced the reality that time with family is precious and not guaranteed. Moreover, Charles has always been more emotionally aware than many in his family have given him credit for. His own childhood was marked by emotional distance from his parents, particularly his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, who was devoted to duty above all else. Perhaps Charles sees in his relationship with Harry an opportunity to break that cycle of emotional isolation that has plagued the Windsor family for generations. William's reaction, while seemingly harsh, becomes more understandable when we consider the unique position he occupies. As the heir apparent, William has been groomed from birth to put the institution above personal feelings. Every decision he makes is filtered through the lens of how it will affect the monarchy's reputation and stability. In his mind, Harry's very public criticisms, from the Oprah interview to the explosive revelations in his memoir Spare, weren't just personal attacks but direct threats to the institution he's dedicated his life to serving and will one day lead. William's anger likely stems from a deep sense of betrayal that goes beyond typical sibling rivalry. In his worldview, Harry had everything: privilege, purpose, public adoration, and threw it all away for what William might perceive as selfish reasons. The fact that Harry could criticize the very institution that gave him his identity, while William has sacrificed personal autonomy to serve that same institution, creates a fundamental disconnect between the brothers. There's also the matter of loyalty. William has spent years defending the monarchy, sometimes at personal cost. He's maintained the stiff upper lip, followed protocol, and put duty before personal desire in ways that have shaped his entire adult life. To see Harry return to his father's good graces without having to make similar sacrifices might feel like a profound injustice to William. But perhaps most painful of all is what Harry's journey represents to William on a psychological level. Harry chose freedom over duty, authenticity over appearances, and personal happiness over institutional loyalty. In many ways, Harry has achieved what William, bound by his position as heir, never can: the ability to forge his own path and live on his own terms. The narrative that Harry is somehow worming his way back into royal favour is both reductive and unfair. It ignores the profound courage it took for Harry to step away from the only life he'd ever known. When Harry and Meghan made the unprecedented decision to step back from their roles as senior royals in 2020, they weren't playing games or manipulating the system. They were choosing mental health over material privilege, authenticity over appearances, and love over duty. This decision didn't come easily. Harry had to weigh the loss of his military titles, his patronages, his financial security, and his relationship with his family against the increasingly unbearable pressure of life within the royal system. The fact that he chose to leave speaks to the severity of the situation he and Meghan were facing, not to any master plan to eventually return on better terms. When Harry spoke about his experiences in the 2021 interview with Oprah Winfrey and later in his memoir Spare, he wasn't scheming, he was being brutally honest about his lived experience. He talked about feeling trapped, about struggling with mental health issues, about watching his wife suffer under intense media scrutiny and alleged family indifference. These weren't strategic revelations designed to hurt the monarchy. They were the painful admissions of someone trying to make sense of trauma and find healing. The fact that millions of people around the world resonated with Harry's honesty suggests that his truth-telling served a purpose beyond personal catharsis. It humanized the royal family in ways that decades of carefully managed public relations never could. It showed that even princes struggle with mental health, family dysfunction, and the challenge of living authentically in a world that demands conformity. Reports suggest that people don't even dare get William started on Meghan, which reveals a troubling aspect of this family dynamic. The tendency to blame Meghan for Harry's choices reflects both a fundamental misunderstanding of Harry's agency and deeply rooted issues around race and gender that the British media and public have struggled to address honestly. Meghan didn't force Harry to leave royal life. She gave him the strength and support to make a choice he'd been contemplating for years. Friends and biographers have consistently reported that Harry had long been unhappy with his role within the royal family, feeling like a spare, whose primary function was to support William's eventual reign. The arrival of Meghan in his life didn't create these feelings, it simply provided him with an alternative vision of what his life could look like. The persistent narrative that Meghan somehow manipulated or controlled Harry into abandoning his family and duties is both infantilizing to Harry and rooted in harmful stereotypes about strong women, particularly women of colour. It suggests that Harry, a decorated military veteran and accomplished public figure in his own right, was somehow incapable of making his own decisions about his life and future. Meghan's role in this story is actually much more positive than her critics acknowledge. She provided Harry with a safe haven from the intense pressures of royal life, gave him two beautiful children who have brought him immense joy, and supported him through some of the most difficult periods of his life. Rather than being the villain in this narrative, she represents love, support, and the possibility of authentic happiness outside the constraints of royal duty. The continued focus on Meghan as a negative influence reveals more about the mindset of her critics than about her actual impact on Harry's life. It suggests an inability to accept that Harry might have legitimate reasons for his choices that have nothing to do with his wife's influence and everything to do with his own assessment of what would make him happy and fulfilled. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of this ongoing family feud is its impact on the next generation. Archie and Lilibet, Charles's grandchildren, and William's niece and nephew are growing up largely disconnected from their British family due to the adults' inability to resolve their differences. From Charles's perspective as a grandfather, the desire to know and have a relationship with Archie and Lilibet must be overwhelming. These children represent not just his genetic legacy, but also his connection to Harry's new life in California. The fact that they live thousands of miles away and have minimal contact with their royal relatives means that precious years of relationship building are being lost to adult pride and stubbornness. For William, the estrangement from Harry's children represents yet another loss in what has already been a relationship marked by profound grief and separation. These children are his blood relatives, potential playmates for his own children, and a bridge that could potentially heal the rift between the brothers. Their absence from family gatherings and celebrations is a constant reminder of how far the family has fallen from the close-knit unit they once aspired to be. The children themselves are innocent victims of adult dysfunction. They're growing up with limited knowledge of their British heritage, their royal connections, and the rich history that forms part of their identity. While Harry and Meghan have worked to protect them from the toxicity of royal life and British media coverage, the complete separation from Charles and the extended family means these children are missing out on relationships that could enrich their lives in meaningful ways. At its core, this family drama represents a clash between institutional needs and personal authenticity that has plagued the British monarchy for generations. The royal family exists to serve the state and the Commonwealth, but it's also composed of human beings with personal needs, desires and traumas that don't always align with their public roles. William embodies the institutional perspective. His entire identity is wrapped up in his future role as king, and he views challenges to the monarchy as personal attacks. From his standpoint, Harry's public criticisms weren't just harmful to the institution, they were betrayals of everything William has sacrificed his personal autonomy to serve. William's resistance to Harry's reconciliation with Charles stems from his belief that Harry should have to prove his loyalty to the institution before being welcomed back into the family fold. Harry, conversely, represents the personal perspective. He prioritized his mental health, his marriage, and his children's well-being over institutional loyalty. His willingness to speak publicly about his struggles wasn't intended as an attack on the monarchy, but as an honest accounting of his personal experience. From Harry's viewpoint, family relationships should be about love and support, not institutional loyalty and public service. Charles finds himself caught between these two perspectives. As king, he understands the institutional needs that drive William's thinking, but as a father and grandfather, he's drawn to the personal connections that Harry represents. His apparent openness to reconciliation suggests that in his final years, personal relationships may be taking precedence over institutional considerations. William's reported insistence that Harry must prove himself over a long period of time before earning forgiveness reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what forgiveness actually is. True forgiveness isn't something that's earned through good behavior or lengthy probation periods. It's a gift freely given that benefits the forgiver as much as the forgiven. Charles seems to understand this distinction in ways that William does not. The king's apparent willingness to rebuild his relationship with Harry isn't based on Harry meeting certain conditions or proving his worthiness. It's based on Charles's recognition that holding on to resentment and anger ultimately hurts everyone involved, including himself. Research on family reconciliation consistently shows that forgiveness and rebuilding relationships is most successful when it's approached as a process rather than a transaction. It requires willingness from both parties to acknowledge pain, express remorse where appropriate, and commit to moving forward together. It doesn't require the wrong party to extract payment or proof of worthiness from the person seeking reconciliation. William's approach, demanding that Harry prove himself over time, sets up a dynamic where reconciliation becomes contingent on Harry's performance rather than on the brothers' mutual desire to heal their relationship. This approach is more likely to perpetuate conflict than resolve it, because it maintains a power imbalance where William holds all the cards and Harry must constantly prove his worthiness for basic family connection. The British media's coverage of this family drama has been far from neutral, often serving to inflame tensions rather than promote understanding. The constant stream of anonymous sources, leaked stories, and speculative reporting has created an environment where every gesture is analysed for hidden meaning, and every interaction is interpreted through the lens of conflict. The language used to describe Harry's potential reconciliation with Charles is particularly telling. Words like worming suggest manipulation and deceit rather than genuine desire for family connection. This framing serves to perpetuate the narrative that Harry is somehow untrustworthy or calculating in his approach to family relationships, rather than simply seeking the normal human connection that most people take for granted. The media's treatment of this story also reflects broader issues around celebrity coverage, mental health awareness, and the public's relationship with the royal family. The intense scrutiny that every member of the royal family faces makes genuine reconciliation more difficult because private family matters become public spectacles, with every conversation potentially ending up in newspaper headlines. This family drama isn't just a British domestic issue, it has implications for the Commonwealth realm and the monarchy's international reputation. Harry and Meghan's decision to relocate to California and build their new life in America represents a symbolic shift away from the traditional British-centred model of royalty. Their success in establishing themselves as independent public figures through their Netflix deals, podcast ventures and charitable work demonstrates that royal status can be leveraged for positive impact without being constrained by traditional royal protocols. This alternative model of royal influence may be appealing to younger generations and to Commonwealth nations that are increasingly questioning their relationships with the British monarchy. Charles's apparent openness to reconciliation with Harry may reflect an understanding that the monarchy's future depends on its ability to evolve and adapt to changing global expectations. A rigid, unforgiving approach to family relationships may not serve the institution well in an era where authenticity and emotional intelligence are increasingly valued over stoic adherence to tradition. Despite the current tensions, there are several factors that could contribute to eventual healing within the royal family. Charles's mortality and health concerns create urgency around reconciliation that didn't exist when the conflicts first emerged. The passage of time may also soften some of the harder edges of anger and resentment that currently characterize the relationships. The grandchildren represent another powerful motivation for reconciliation. As Archie and Lilibet grow older, the desire for them to know their British family may become stronger for all parties involved. Similarly, William's children, George, Charlotte and Louis, may eventually express curiosity about their uncle and cousins in America, creating pressure for adult reconciliation. The monarchy's long-term health may also require some form of family healing. Public opinion polling consistently shows that the royal family's popularity is tied to their ability to present a united, stable front. Ongoing family drama undermines that presentation and may ultimately threaten the institution's viability. The ongoing tension between William and Harry, set against Charles's apparent desire for reconciliation, represents more than just a celebrity family drama. It's a microcosm of larger questions about duty versus authenticity, institutional loyalty versus personal happiness, and the price of holding on to resentment versus the courage required for forgiveness. Harry's journey from dutiful spare to independent public figure represents a form of courage that shouldn't be minimized. Walking away from privilege, security and family connection in service of mental health and authentic living requires tremendous strength. His willingness to speak honestly about his experiences, despite the personal cost, has opened important conversations about mental health, family dysfunction, and the human cost of institutional service. William's position, while perhaps misguided in its rigidity, is also understandable given the unique pressures he faces as heir to the throne. His entire identity is built around service to an institution that his brother publicly criticized. His resistance to easy reconciliation may stem from a deep-seated fear that forgiveness will be interpreted as weakness or validation of Harry's criticisms. Charles's apparent openness to rebuilding his relationship with Harry demonstrates wisdom that comes with age and mortality. At 75, having faced serious health challenges, the king seems to understand that family relationships matter more than institutional pride. His approach offers hope that love and connection can ultimately triumph over resentment and division. The path forward isn't clear, and genuine reconciliation will require compromises and growth from all parties involved. But the alternative, continued estrangement, missed opportunities for connection, and grandchildren growing up without knowing their extended family serves no one's interests, institutional or personal. Harry isn't worming his way back into anything, he's simply trying to be a son, a father, and a human being seeking connection with his family of origin. William can choose to remain bitter, but the cost will be his own peace of mind and the potential for meaningful relationships with his brother and his brother's children. In the end, this story is about the choice between love and pride, between forgiveness and resentment, between the courage to grow and the safety of staying stuck in old patterns. The royal family's resolution of these conflicts will say as much about their fitness to serve as monarchs as any constitutional crisis or political challenge they might face. The world is watching, but more importantly, two little children in California are growing up largely disconnected from half of their heritage because the adults in their lives haven't figured out how to choose love over pride. That, more than any institutional consideration, should provide the motivation for healing that this family desperately needs.